it often feels unjust. You begin to reduce your calorie intake, your facial contours sharpen, and your arms start to slim down. Yet that persistent belly fat remains entrenched, defying all efforts to dislodge it. Why does it hold on so tenaciously? The reality is, abdominal fat is more than just stored energy. It functions akin to an organ, intricately linked to hormones like cortisol and insulin. Evolution designed it as a protective encasement for your vital organs, a fundamental survival repository your body is reluctant to access. Scientists explain that visceral fat exhibits lower metabolic activity compared to other fat types. Simply put, it metabolizes slower, reacts sluggishly, and is typically the last to diminish. Your body views it as an emergency cache. Therefore, before your abdominal muscles can even begin to show, your system demands assurance that you are not undergoing starvation. This inherent survival mechanism dictates why reducing belly fat requires both patience and a strategic approach. And it's also why many individuals abandon their efforts just as their bodies are poised to engage in genuine fat burning. Before we delve deeper into this metabolic shift, please subscribe, as the subsequent stages of this process will undoubtedly surprise you. Upon commencing a diet, your body doesn't immediately signal, "Excellent, time to incinerate fat." Instead, it reacts with a mild sense of alarm. It has grown accustomed to a consistent influx of calories from your regular meals. Abruptly diminishing that intake is akin to an unexpected power outage. In the initial phases, your brain perceives an energy deficit and instructs your liver to release glycogen, which is stored glucose, to sustain your muscle and brain function. You might experience a slight reduction in weight or even an energy surge, but this does not signify fat loss. This stage represents your metabolism's attempt to ascertain whether the shortage is temporary or more severe. Only after several continuous days of reduced caloric intake does your body start preparing for a more profound metabolic transformation. Thus, if you've ever embarked on a diet and felt no progress, you weren't mistaken. Something was indeed occurring. It was merely the preliminary phase. Consider glycogen as an intrinsic backup power source, a carbohydrate reserve your body utilizes when food consumption ceases. During the initial days, your body heavily draws upon this reserve. Here's an interesting detail. For every gram of glycogen, your body retains nearly 3 grams of water. Consequently, when glycogen levels drop, so does water weight. This explains the initial rapid decline on the scale. However, this still doesn't represent actual fat loss. When glycogen eventually depletes, insulin levels begin to fall. This is the signal your body has been anticipating, the green light to tap into stored fat. Nevertheless, this transition is not instantaneous. It typically necessitates 3 to 5 days of a consistent caloric deficit. So, while those initial pounds are predominantly water, they serve as an indicator that your body is on the verge of entering true fat-burning mode. That first week often feels almost miraculous. The scale plummets, your face appears leaner, and your clothes fit differently. For a moment, it feels as though you've discovered the secret to effortless dieting. However, if you equate early weight loss with fat reduction, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. As glycogen stores drain and water is expelled from your tissues, the number on the scale may drop by 2 to 4 kilograms. Yet nearly all of this is water, influenced by reduced carbohydrate intake. It's a transient effect, merely your body adapting to the new routine. This is precisely where most people encounter a psychological barrier. After a week or two, the rapid decline decelerates, the scale becomes stagnant, and they immediately conclude their diet has ceased to be effective. In reality, this plateau signifies the threshold to genuine fat loss. Your internal systems are stabilizing, recalibrating, and readying themselves for a deeper metabolic change. Therefore, that initial drop is not the ultimate victory. It's an invitation, a prompt to persevere, because the true metamorphosis is just beginning. By the second week, your body starts to recognize a consistent pattern. Energy intake has been reduced repeatedly, which activates a natural defense mechanism known as metabolic adaptation. Your metabolism becomes marginally more efficient, your hunger hormones intensify, and your body endeavors to conserve energy wherever possible. This is evolution in action, a survival response inherited from ancestors who endured famine, not structured meal plans. Here's the paradox. While metabolic adaptation may sound discouraging, it actually confirms that your system is adjusting to a new rhythm. You are progressively moving closer to the point where stored fat becomes your primary energy source. The key isn't to combat your metabolism, but to comprehend it and align with its timing. In the subsequent phase, your hormones will entirely redefine the parameters of fat loss. Before proceeding, I'd like to hear from you. During which week of dieting does your body most fiercely resist? Share your experience in the comments. It might assist someone else in navigating that psychologically challenging period. Hormones act as the silent conductors of your metabolic symphony. When you diet, their equilibrium determines whether you efficiently burn fat or repeatedly encounter frustration. Consider insulin, for instance. It's the hormone responsible for nutrient storage. When it remains elevated due to frequent snacking or sugar-laden meals, your body secures its fat reserves. It's akin to guarding a vault, but misplacing the key. As you sustain a caloric deficit, insulin levels begin to decline. Only then does your body permit stored fat to be liberated and utilized for energy. However, this authorization is not immediate. Your system first needs to trust that the caloric reduction is stable and safe. Next comes cortisol, the stress hormone. Prolonged workdays, inadequate sleep, emotional strain, intense workouts, and even anxiety about dieting can elevate cortisol levels. High cortisol prompts your body to retain fat, particularly around your abdomen, and can trigger cravings for sugary and comfort foods. It's a biological trap. Stress makes you desire the very foods that impede fat loss. This is why your emotional state can undermine progress as effectively as overeating. For genuine fat burning to commence, your major hormones must synchronize. Insulin sufficiently lowered to release fat, cortisol adequately managed to avert storage, and leptin balanced enough to prevent overeating. It's a biochemical ballet. Only when the dancers move in harmony does fat loss unfold as it should. So, if you've ever pondered why someone else's diet appears effortless while yours feels like a perpetual struggle, remember it's not solely about calories. It's about the intricate chemistry orchestrating the entire process behind the scenes. After approximately 1 to 2 weeks of consistent calorie reduction, your body reaches a pivotal turning point. Glycogen stores are almost depleted, insulin levels remain lower, and your metabolism begins to pivot towards fat as its primary fuel source. This is the moment when true transformation genuinely starts. Your body enters a state known as metabolic flexibility, the capacity to seamlessly alternate between burning glucose and burning fat. You won't perceive a dramatic switch. Instead, subtle changes will manifest. More stable energy, fewer cravings, and sharper focus. Your liver starts converting stored fat into ketones, which serve as a clean and efficient energy supply for both your brain and muscles. For many people, this marks the first time in years their metabolism functions as it was intrinsically designed to. The timeline for this shift varies. Some enter fat-burning mode in 4 days, while others may require nearly 2 weeks, influenced by genetics, exercise habits, and dietary history. However, one truth remains constant. Consistency invariably trumps intensity. Your body rewards steady perseverance, not erratic attempts. If you have reached this stage in your diet, commend yourself. You are no longer merely simulating fat burning. Your body has finally begun to do it for real. Yet, this is where things become particularly intriguing. Not all fat behaves identically. Understanding the distinction between the two primary types, visceral fat and subcutaneous fat, fundamentally alters how and where fat disappears. Subcutaneous fat is the soft layer you can grasp directly beneath your skin. It is mostly harmless and generally the easier type to shed. Visceral fat, however, is an entirely different entity. It encases your organs, including your liver, intestines, and pancreas. It is metabolically active, hormonally stubborn, and strongly associated with insulin resistance, cardiovascular strain, and inflammation. Here's the surprising revelation. Visceral fat actually burns faster than subcutaneous fat because it is more metabolically active. Your body often prioritizes it when your energy intake drops. This explains why some individuals observe health improvements: better blood sugar, reduced cholesterol, lower inflammation, long before any visible changes appear in the mirror. However, the subcutaneous layer, especially around the lower abdomen, is typically the last to go. This is the fat that causes the most frustration. What you observe externally is predominantly the tenacious, less active fat situated atop the deeper, visceral layer. Your body first burns through the hazardous internal fat. Only after that reserve begins to diminish does it start on the softer, visible fat. While this process feels maddeningly slow, biologically, it is a perfect strategy. Your body prioritizes survival before aesthetics. So, the next time impatience sets in, recall this truth. Your body is primarily safeguarding you, and only subsequently sculpting you. Now, let's discuss exercise, an aspect of the fat loss enigma that most people misunderstand. Many perceive workouts solely as a means to burn calories, but this represents only a fraction of their true impact. Strength training builds muscle, and muscle demands more energy even at rest. This means your resting metabolic rate increases, so you burn more calories doing absolutely nothing, even while sleeping. High-intensity interval training, HIIT, introduces another dimension, initiating a physiological effect known as EPOC, often referred to as the afterburn. Your body continues to consume oxygen and burn fat for hours after the workout concludes. However, even low-intensity movement, walking, yoga, cycling, holds profound significance. These pursuits alleviate stress and aid in cortisol regulation, averting the hormonal disarray that leads to the buildup of abdominal fat. The true key lies in forging a combination of strength, cardiovascular activity, and recuperation, a regimen that sustains your metabolism's responsiveness and malleability. However, heed this caution. Depending solely on exercise while neglecting nutrition is akin to trying to empty a bathtub with the tap still flowing. Food dictates whether you are in a deficit, whereas exercise determines how efficiently your physique utilizes that deficit. Together, they forge synergy. But only if you perceive movement as sustenance, not as a penalty. The objective is not exhaustion. It is adaptation. You are not striving to accomplish more, but rather to refine your body's utilization of its inherent capabilities. You might adhere to the perfect dietary plan, master your workouts, and diligently stick to your routine. Nevertheless, if you're experiencing inadequate sleep and perpetual stress, abdominal fat will cling stubbornly. During profound sleep, your body secretes growth hormone, repairs tissues, and balances leptin and ghrelin, the hormones governing hunger and satiety. When sleep deteriorates, these hormones become erratic, fostering sugar cravings, fatigue, and augmented fat storage. Persistent stress merely exacerbates the situation. Elevated cortisol encases fat around your midsection like a defensive barrier. Your body fails to comprehend contemporary stressors such as work deadlines, excessive rumination, or emotional burdens. It responds as if imminent danger looms. Incorporate excessive caffeine, late-night screen exposure, or overtraining, and you cultivate a metabolic maelstrom. The remedy is not intricate, yet it demands dedication. Prioritize 7 to 9 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Unwind through gentle stretching or mindfulness. Cease regarding burnout as an emblem of achievement. For the truth is that the most challenging fat to shed is not physical. It resides within your habits. You have refined your diet, exercised consistently, improved your sleep, and managed stress more effectively. Yet your belly remains stubbornly present. This is not your imagination. It is biology. The abdominal area possesses fewer blood vessels and beta-adrenergic receptors, the receptors accountable for releasing fat into the bloodstream. Simply put, abdominal fat is more difficult for your body to access. Add years of hormonal fluctuations, stress, poor sleep, and elevated insulin, and the abdomen transforms into a reservoir for metabolic resistance, a place where your body hoards energy for genuine worst-case scenarios. A biological emergency vault. However, here is the revelation most individuals never hear. Once your hormones begin to stabilize, insulin steadily decreases, cortisol becomes manageable, and your muscle mass steadily increases, your body finally targets the midsection for fuel. The initial change feels excruciatingly slow, almost imperceptible. Yet once this transformation commences, the visual metamorphosis frequently occurs more rapidly than anticipated. This is why maintaining consistency during plateaus is crucial, as just beyond that frustration lies the moment when everything aligns. Your body is not undermining you. It is safeguarding you. Fat loss is permission-based, not punishment-based. Your biology requires reassurance before it relinquishes. The antiquated adage, "eat less, move more," sounds astute, but reality doesn't conform to catchy slogans. A moderate caloric deficit, approximately 15 to 20% below maintenance, consistently incinerates fat while preserving your metabolism and muscle mass. Dip too low, and your body interprets it as an existential threat. Thyroid function diminishes, leptin plummets, and cortisol escalates, creating the ideal conditions for stubborn abdominal fat to become more entrenched. Conversely, a judicious deficit conveys the opposite message. It instructs the body that sustenance is still plentiful, albeit in smaller increments. This enables it to release stored fat without triggering alarm. Couple this with high-protein meals and regular resistance training, and you safeguard every ounce of lean mass while accelerating fat metabolism. Extreme diets, however, function like snares, prompting rapid initial weight loss followed by severe rebounds. Once normal eating resumes, the body overcompensates, stockpiling fat at an accelerated pace. This phenomenon, termed fat overshooting, is not a setback. It is an evolutionary instinct. Therefore, the aim was never to deprive your body. It was to educate it. Long-term fat loss is a negotiation, not a conflict. Now, for the million-dollar inquiry, when does abdominal fat genuinely begin to dissipate? The answer is not glamorous, but it is profoundly human. For an individual adhering to a controlled caloric deficit, balanced macronutrients, and regular physical activity, perceptible abdominal fat reduction typically commences between week 3 and week 6. This is when glycogen levels remain consistently low, hormones stabilize, and metabolic adaptation establishes a new equilibrium. For others, particularly those grappling with insulin resistance, hormonal imbalances, or chronic stress, the transformation may require 8 to 12 weeks. However, once the body finally targets the abdomen, progress accelerates rapidly. Your metabolism becomes more efficient, more flexible, and more adept at utilizing fat as its primary energy source. Scientific evidence indicates that the crucial factor is not how swiftly you enter fat-burning mode, but rather how long you can sustain that state. The initial weeks test your resolve. The subsequent months challenge your identity. Hence, the true question is not when fat burning initiates, but rather, will you remain steadfast when it does? How do you discern that you have entered fat-burning mode? It bears no relation to the scale. It pertains to sensations, subtle internal cues. Your energy becomes stable rather than erratic. Sugar cravings sharply diminish. Hunger becomes anticipated, not desperate. During physical exertion, your body feels marginally warmer, indicative of increased thermogenesis. You will observe smaller, more consistent alterations in body shape. Your waistline will constrict even if the number on the scale barely shifts. Clothing will fit differently. Blood sugar levels will become more stable. Mood will improve. Sleep will deepen. These are the whispers of a body fueled by fat. Yet, the most dependable indicator is endurance. You can endure longer intervals between meals without experiencing a crash. That is metabolic flexibility, the capacity to transition between fuel sources without distress. Your body no longer craves immediate energy. It calmly consumes what you have accumulated over years. If you have attained that stage, you have earned it. What once seemed unattainable is now occurring spontaneously. And if you seek further insight into how your body utilizes fat long before it ever touches muscle, there is another layer to unravel. Specifically, how long you could fast before experiencing muscle loss. This elucidation reveals precisely how your body safeguards lean tissue while employing fat as its primary fuel. Attaining fat-burning mode is commendable, but sustaining it is mastery. The secret lies in transmuting short-term endeavor into a long-term rhythm. Consistent sleep, balanced meals, manageable stress, and regular strength training are not burdens. They are the fundamental pillars that uphold your metabolism. You can also implement strategic refeed days, brief increases in carbohydrates to reset leptin and reassure your body of abundant sustenance. When executed correctly, refeed days avert metabolic deceleration and maintain consistent fat loss. Consider it teaching your metabolism to be adaptable, not inflexible. The most significant error individuals commit after shedding fat